As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the living room, Sarah and Michael sat together on the couch, their fingers intertwined. The excitement of their recent engagement still lingered in the air, but beneath the surface, a more profound sense of responsibility loomed. They were about to embark on a journey that would not only unite their hearts, but also intertwine their financial lives. With the wedding date set for next spring, they knew it was time to have some critical conversations about their future together. "Can you believe we're actually doing this?" Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "We're going to be married!" Michael smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "I know, it feels surreal, but we need to talk about more than just the wedding plans. We have to think about our life together after the I-do's." Sarah nodded, her expression shifting slightly. "You're right. I guess we can't ignore the financial side of things. It's not the most romantic topic, but it's so important." As they settled in for what would be one of the most crucial conversations of their lives, they both understood that financial discussions were essential to building a solid foundation for their future. They had heard stories of couples who struggled with money issues, and they wanted to avoid those pitfalls. The concept of financial red flags floated in their minds, reminders of the things they needed to address before taking the plunge into marriage. "First things first," Michael said, his tone turning serious. "We should talk about our debts. I don't have much, just my student loans and a small credit card balance. But I know some couples don't share that information before getting married, and it can lead to major problems later." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a mix of vulnerability and determination. "I have some student loans too, and I also have a car loan. It's not a huge amount, but I've been trying to manage it carefully. I think it's important for us to understand where we both stand financially." They spent the next hour discussing their debts in detail. Michael shared the specifics of his student loans, the interest rates, and his strategy for paying them off. He explained how he had been making extra payments whenever possible to reduce the principal. Sarah listened intently, appreciating his proactive approach. When it was her turn, she laid out her financial situation, detailing her car loan and the monthly payments she had been making diligently. "I've been trying to keep my credit score healthy," she said. "I check it regularly, and I've worked hard to stay below 30% utilization on my credit cards. What about you?" Michael nodded. "I check mine too. It's not perfect, but I'm around 720. I think we should pull our credit reports together to see if there are any issues we need to address before the wedding." As they discussed their credit scores, Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. They were both in a similar range, and neither had any major red flags. It was a promising start, and she felt grateful for Michael's transparency. They agreed to review their credit reports together in the coming days, determined to ensure they had a clear understanding of their financial health. "Another thing we need to consider is how we handle our spending," Michael said, shifting the conversation. "I know we both have different habits." Sarah chuckled softly. "That's an understatement. I tend to be more of a planner. I like to budget and save for things, while you sometimes go with the flow." Michael grinned sheepishly. "Guilty as charged. I enjoy treating myself occasionally, but I know I need to be more disciplined. I think we should create a balanced budget together that reflects both of our styles." "Absolutely," Sarah agreed. "We can set aside money for fun things while also prioritizing savings. It's all about finding that balance." They brainstormed ideas for their budget, discussing their monthly expenses and how they could allocate funds for entertainment, groceries, and savings. Sarah suggested using a budgeting app to track their spending and stay accountable to each other. Michael liked the idea, and they decided to set a monthly meeting to review their finances, ensuring they were both on the same page. As the conversation progressed, they began to explore their financial goals. "What do you see for us in the next few years?" Michael asked, leaning forward with interest. "I'd love to travel more," Sarah said, her eyes lighting up. "I've always dreamed of visiting Europe, but I also want to start saving for a house. What about you?" Michael nodded thoughtfully. "I agree with both those goals. I want to travel too, but I also think we should prioritize building an emergency fund. Life can be unpredictable, and having that safety net will give us peace of mind." "Definitely," Sarah said. "I've read that we should aim for 3 to 6 months' worth of expenses in that fund. We can start small and build it over time. They discussed their aspirations further, realizing that aligning their financial goals was essential for a harmonious future. They talked about their dreams of homeownership, travel, and even starting a family one day. Each goal required careful planning and financial commitment, and they knew they needed to work together to make them a reality. "Speaking of family," Michael said, his tone shifting slightly, "we should also talk about any financial obligations we have toward our families. I know my parents have helped me with school, and I want to be able to support them as they get older. What about you?"
Sarah considered this for a moment. "My parents have been supportive too, but I also want to make sure I'm not overextending myself financially. It's important to help our families when we can, but we have to prioritize our own financial stability first." They both agreed that while supporting their families was important, they needed to set boundaries to ensure they didn't jeopardize their financial health. It was a delicate balance that required ongoing communication and understanding. As the evening wore on, they shifted their focus to the concept of financial independence. "I think it's crucial for both of us to maintain some level of financial independence," Michael said. "Even as a married couple, we should have our own accounts and some personal spending money." "I agree," Sarah said. "It's important to feel like we each have our own space financially, even while sharing our lives. We could have a joint account for shared expenses and keep our individual accounts for personal spending."
They both felt relieved at the idea of maintaining some independence while still working as a team. It was a compromise that would allow them to respect each other's individuality while also building a shared future. As they wrapped up their discussion, Sarah brought up the importance of having an emergency fund. "What if something unexpected happens? We need to be prepared for those situations." Michael nodded. "Exactly. Whether it's a medical emergency or something with our jobs, having that fund will help us feel secure. We should aim to build that fund before we start thinking about big purchases like a house." With a plan in place, they decided to set a timeline for building their emergency fund, committing to contribute a certain amount each month until they reached their goal. The sense of teamwork and mutual understanding in their planning filled the room with a sense of optimism. As they leaned back on the couch, Sarah looked at Michael, her heart swelling with affection. "I'm really glad we had this conversation. I know finances aren't the most glamorous topic, but it feels good to be open and honest about everything." Michael smiled warmly. "Me too. I think having these discussions now will only strengthen our relationship. We're building a partnership that's not just about love but also about trust and teamwork." Their hearts were full as they reflected on the journey ahead. They had navigated the tricky waters of financial discussions and emerged stronger, armed with knowledge and a shared vision for their future. They knew there would be challenges ahead, but they felt confident that their commitment to open communication would guide them through any obstacles. As they settled in for the night, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road to marriage was not just about planning a wedding. It was about laying the groundwork for a life filled with love, respect, and shared dreams. They understood that financial discussions were not merely a checklist to tick off before the big day, but rather an ongoing dialogue that would continue to shape their lives as partners. With a sense of excitement for what lay ahead, Sarah and Michael embraced the journey they were embarking on together. They were ready to face the future hand in hand, knowing that their love and mutual understanding would be the pillars of their financial stability and, ultimately, their happiness.